Our 40 minutes are the best ones, I think, like by and large, because I think it's just absolute pith the whole way through.
That's got to be the opening soundbite for the pod.
Watch this.
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I'm joined by Bruce Fitzpatrick.
Hello. You didn't do your usual hacking it back when you started that, Tom, but
back. He's working on it, isn't he?
Good to be here.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to reel it in. And Sam Williams.
Greetings, gentlemen.
How are we all?
Good. I've got a little bit of a husky voice. I've had a little bit of a party weekend down on the Kent coast playing some golf.
Sounds tough.
I feel like I'm along for the ride on this one a little bit. I must admit, I feel like I've missed probably one of the best weekends golf for a while.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack here, and it's nice getting back into, or I'm looking forward to getting back into the sort of dissection of the professional tours, which we haven't done in quite some time. And yeah, as you said, quite an exciting weekend of golf. Even last weekend, lot to cover.
It's been take central as well, hasn't it? No shortage of sound bites.
And Bruce wants to get pith, which I'm not actually sure what that even means, but there we go. Let's go.
Isn't that the middle of an orange pith?
No, pithy remarks, just sort of succinct. No, I think, yeah. Wow, that was a shocking start. No, I think, yeah. Clearly I'm a little bit out of practice. No, let's just read through the sort of menu for today, I think, because everyone at the jar, we're prone to going off on the odd tangent or two, or going down a rabbit hole and just not really finding our way back. So come on,
let's
Thomas.
set some sort of agenda. So we've got a couple of weeks ago, we got Rahm at the American Express. We need to give this a bit of love when he decided to call it. Well, we won't go into it. We'll talk about Rahm, the American Express. Knees touching. The same week, Tyrrell Hatton loses his mind about the 18th at Yaz Links. Needs to be talked about. Then we've got what's gone on recently in the Dubai Classic with Victor taking the lead there. We've got List over at the Farmers taking it down the 18th in the playoff hole. We've got the Ryder Cup captaincy, which is being delayed, which we're going to have a talk about. And then what the Shark is up to in the Saudi-backed Golf League and what that's sort of been evolving into. And we'll give it all a little take and we'll see what Bruce can get really excited about and who he can attack and then use that as a soundbite somewhere.
Can I be a bit more pithy?
No pressure.
With this? I'm going to suggest it's an appetizer of some pretty poor takes by the pros. Quite a nice main course of some good professional golf. And for dessert, we're going to be serving some stuff off the course in the form of Ryder Cup captaincy.
That was pith.
And the Saudi Golf League. Was that a bit more pithy?
I think mine was more robust.
Get in touch. Let us know your views. Always curious to know.
As we're saying, we want some emotion, some real vigorous expression in this. But equally, let's not lose sight of the fact that there were 4 really big events played there, and there were winners, and just a general sort of setting of the scene. I think it almost feels like for the season to come. I think there's a lot to recap there. So maybe if we just go back to last weekend, the first Rolex Series event of the year, if I'm not mistaken, at Yaz Links, Abu Dhabi, new venue. Don't know what you guys reckon. I mean, Sam, clearly you've not prepared for this podcast and watched any of the golf, but you just, from what you've seen on social media, what did you reckon?
Well, no, actually, I did have a little chat with Richie Ramsey about the course. Spoiler alert for an upcoming Eclectic 18 podcast there, by the way, before he headed out to play. And, he was like, yeah, it's cool. I mean, it felt like it was a refreshing take from where it's usually played. I thought it was good fun, wasn't it? I thought the best part was, without doubt, watching them on, I want to say it was the Friday, and seeing McIlroy come off the course going, I'm so glad to be off the course right now.
When the wind was up.
They were totally leveled by it, weren't they?
Yeah.
But it looked like a really good test, didn't it? It was nice to see.
I tell you what, watching that Friday, because I kind of watched Rory made the cut on the line. I think the cut came in at like +1 or something like that. But Rory just made the cut. But I was watching Rafa Cabrera Bello around on that Friday, and it was genuinely like an exhibition in how you play in the wind. Like everything was knocked down, like chippy little 2-irons. Like everything was going head height. You could see he was just half swinging everything. It was proper links or wind golf, and it was an exhibition in ball striking. Really, I was really impressed when I was watching him go around that Friday. But it was brilliant to watch them struggle because it's such a level of the wind, isn't it?
Yeah, it just makes it interesting, doesn't it? And again, not to sort of flog that dead horse, which I guess everyone's going to be anticipating this, but you compare it to the Amex over at PGA West or La Quinta, whatever it's called. It was just a more enjoyable test of golf to watch. I think, as you say, there watching the pros struggle. Like you don't normally see them struggle, actually. So here, someone like Rory, you say, that's pretty much the hardest round of golf, competitive golf that he's played. We don't need that every week. We don't want it to become, because there is an element that, it becomes a bit comical and maybe the skills sort of not really it's not as identifiable when there's quite a bit of luck involved, as you're saying there, Tom. But I mean, we like to see that now and then, and particularly when you've got such a good field as we had in the event at Abu Dhabi. I thought it was pretty compelling viewing too. Always nice to see, a great player from a few years ago who struggled a bit make a resurgence, and that's exactly what Thomas Pieters did. I mean, he seems like he's had a relatively quiet year. I know he won back end of last season, but given that he really hit the heights of kind of being one of the best players in the world and like a fantastic rookie record at Hazeltine, I think in 2016, he's kind of gone a bit quiet. So to see him pull through in like a really close contest, and it's sort of Rafa Cabrera Bello as well, as you mentioned there, Mills, he's sort of making his way back. So hopefully those two guys can keep it going for the season ahead. And then a sort of somewhat more like local favourite in Shubhankar Sharma. It was just compelling viewing. Like, they're not the sort of biggest names in golf, but they are still big names. Or there's an interesting story there in the case of Sharma. And it was just like, I kind of sat down and watched a good chunk of it on Sunday, which I don't normally do when it comes to professional golf. So I felt like that was sort of worth sitting up and taking notice of.
I need to walk back my statement slightly. It was +3 was the cut, and that's what McIlroy went through on. But go ahead, Sam. That was I just need to correct myself on these things. Always fact checking.
So the one thing that happened that was, bring us back on point here though. Last couple of weeks felt like a good opportunity for the players to just have their 2 penneth on the golf course.
Yeah,
it didn't quite hit the ear right, did it, with Hatton? I think it's fair to say. I don't think anyone's surprised that Till would be the guy, but just to refresh our memories, this was a centerline bunker down 18, wasn't it? Which is a monstrous golf hole anyway. They were all struggling to reach it in 2 for the vast majority of the week. That when you step up on the tee, the idea of a centerline bunker is that you probably lay short of it, or you plot your way around it. If you go and pull driver and shove it straight in the middle of the trap, kind of what do you expect?
Well,
and then it was
I'll read you an excerpt. It must be one of the worst par 5s that I've ever seen in my life. And over the last 2 days, I've clearly played it about as well as it was designed. Hatton said on the Saturday. What's wrong with it? Where do you start? It shouldn't have a bunker in the middle of the fairway, and it shouldn't be over 600 yards from the forward tee. If you hit a good drive as a pro, you should at least have a chance to go for the green in 2. Otherwise, the hole becomes a par 3, and that's if you play it well. I mean, I don't see the problem in a par 3 being a par 5 being a 3-shotter. I don't see the problem in a centerline fairway, because if you hit it down the middle of the fairway and it goes in the bunker, you haven't hit it down the middle of the fairway. You've hit it into a bunker. It's asking you a question: go round it, go over it, go short of it.
It's the kind of thing that we as amateur golfers do. Is like, I'm just going to step up and slot this thing at that bunker, because there's no I'm going to hit it straight. If I pull it slightly, I'll be in the fairway, and if I push it slightly, I'll be in the fairway. But it's not a brilliant take. I guess maybe it's just a sort of kind of proof of how pros just become accustomed to just nailing par fives in two. And there's definitely a risk reward element, I think. And if you are making it so long that there's no reward there, like you literally can't get it up in two, which actually wasn't the case because Rory had a go for it, and there were a couple of other people who got there during the week. But I think it's just a bad take, isn't it? I mean, clearly Tyrrell's not been reading Doak's Anatomy of a Golf Course, has he? But
there's a bit more to it. He finishes with the lovely bit. I would love for a bomb to drop on it and blow it to oblivion, to be honest. It's such a terrible finishing hole. And the fact they moved the tee back today, it's ridiculous. I hit a really good tee shot and still got 290 to the front. I could peg up driver again and still not get there. I mean, he goes on. The rant continues.
Really?
But when you go back to think about...
It sounds like he's on the fence with this one.
It sounds like he made 7-9 there, on Friday and Saturday.
It's
and
nine's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah. So obviously in the melee of the last couple of weeks, some things have skipped by. Someone remind me exactly what Rahm's remarks were regarding.
Well, I think we've got a soundbite which we're going to be able to play, actually.
Piece of shit fucking set up putting contest week.
Unbelievable.
I mean, at least Tyrrell was able to put it in a coherent sentence.
Yeah.
It's different. It's weird, right? That the argument that was on like the same weekend, opposite sides of the planet, about completely different things. So Tyrrell's saying it's too long and too hard, and Rahm is saying it's too easy and it's too wide and it's too short, and it just reverts to a putting contest. Like, they are polar opposite complaints from the two guys. Just remarkable stuff.
Well, we've heard people say in the past, I know we've not said it, which is why I said, we're going to sound like I'm flogging a dead horse, talking about how kind of interesting the European setups can be in comparison to some of those that we see just week in, week out on the PGA Tour. But I mean, some people in the mainstream golf press will say, everyone wants to go to the PGA Tour, not just because the prizes are so much better, but because the courses are tougher as well. Whereas, it's always a low score in Europe. And it's like, well, again, that's just not really the case. The winning score at the Amex was like 23 under par. We look at Abu Dhabi and it's like, Thomas Pieters has just about cracked 10 under. And then you roll forward to the Dubai Desert Classic, and Hovland and Bland have shot 12 under. And there's a course that, they've just firmed the greens up, made it a little bit sort of tougher off the tee in terms of growing some of the rough and making it a little bit lusher around the fairways, making it hard to control your ball. And, those are two of the better scores, lower scores I think we've sort of seen on the European Tour recently. And over in America, it's just a bit, I don't know.
I'm surprised I'm saying this, but they are great events to watch, aren't they? Every year, I think those little spell of, Rolex events that the DP World Tour put on, they're great. They're great. They're much better than watching, like you say, the Amex. They just, head to head, they're just much better events.
And I think for me as well, like you then fast track to the week we've just gone through, and we've had the Farmers at Torrey Pines and the Dubai Desert Classic. And again, for me personally, I mean, at least the Farmers went down to a playoff, which made it relatively interesting, but I didn't enjoy watching the Farmers massively. And that back nine on Sunday at Dubai was incredible. It was such enthralling watching. And the greens, I know like we're firm and fast enthusiasts, but I saw a tweet from Ramsey come out of this weekend. He said they were the firmest greens he's played on in about 13 years, and they couldn't hold a green.
Couldn't hold wedges. It was crazy to see. People weren't even spinning wedges so that the ball was kind of finishing where it pitched. It was like, no, even with a wedge, putting 12,000 revs of spin on it from 100 yards or 90 yards, there was still like one hopping wedges 6 feet past where they were landing it off the fairway.
It seems to be when that happens that you do kind of get this leveling amongst the scores. So Torrey was playing a lot firmer, I think, than it has done in previous years. Now, whether there's some continuity of what they did there through the US Open, I don't know. Torrey was playing firmer. Scoring was a little lower than maybe previous years, seemed to be more bunched. Same in Dubai. And it's like, it's just an infinitely better product, isn't it, to watch when you've got that surprise of seeing someone play a shot and seeing it take a run off somewhere, or struggling to hold a green from 200 out where they might not be able to get up and down, rather than just watching them absolutely shoot it up into the air and land it on a sixpence. It's just a much better product, I think, to watch.
I think there was a bit more though. Like there was a bit more of a spread in Dubai than there maybe was at the Farmers. Obviously you had Hovland and Bland who went into a playoff. We've got to talk about that because, again, I think there's a really great point to be made about, or just a discussion point
totally
about how DP, different players, but also how, Richard Bland, the European Tour have kind of made a real story about him over the last, 8, 9 months or whatever, since he picked up his first win, at the Belfry, and that's been mentioned. That as a story's just kind of been fed and watered, and then lo and behold, he goes and has a really good week this week, and so it just feels like everyone's pulling for Richard Bland at the same time. Like Victor Hovland, we know what a great player he is, but and also just a fantastic kind of temperament, and just seems like such a nice character as well for someone who's that talented at such a young age. And then of course there's Rory, and it just like it feels like there's a lot more of a, no disrespect to Will Zalatoris or Luke List, I've got nothing against them whatsoever, but it just feels like the DP World Tour have done a better job of nursing some of the stories there, and so you're just a bit more engaged with the golf when you're watching it.
I think for the longest time, the European or DP World Tour, the European Tour, and their PR team have done a phenomenal job of getting better access to the players, and even that thing like Tyrrell's anger management thing a few years ago, you get a better understanding, you get a better sense of their personality and stuff, which perhaps in the PGA they don't have that access because the players are so well known and well remunerated and all that stuff. They don't need to do all that stuff maybe, and the European Tour, I think they've done a fab job in the last few years of really making the players accessible, but like you say, I think
they just do it in a different way, don't they? I mean, I think the other night Bruce flipped me the 1 yard fairway challenge they set up, which I think was Morikawa, Rory and Tyrrell Hatton blasting it down the racetrack to a 1 yard fairway. And it was actually great watchable content. It was actually really good, wasn't it? And you're like, do you know what? They never do anything like that for a PGA Tour event or whatever it might be.
I'm sorry, the PGA Tour.
But it's just it's so commercial because it's like, that what their idea
rocket mortgage power and precision.
Exactly.
Look at this dial go up with John Rahm hitting a fairway, and it's like or you see let's see what Justin Thomas's heart rate was when he was hitting a 6-iron with with the whoop strap, and it's like I'm sorry, but I just think that's absolutely garbage content compared to like a reel on the European Tour, the DP World Tour social media that you'll see of them trying to do the 1 yard fairway challenge, or as you say, Tyrrell's anger management.
Did you see the thing they would have Poulter where they got all those
the
containers?
cargo containers. It's just far more engaging.
The other night, he's got Shane Lowry and Fleetwood down there just trying to hole 9-irons under the floodlights. It's like you can watch that for 5-10 minutes. You can get on board with the people a little bit, and there's not this need to activate, the sponsor, the tournament sponsor, by just ramming it down. So they draft out a vice president to sit there and say, we're really proud, we love having it at this event. It's like, bore off, come on, let's, and I think, like you say, credit where credit's due.
They're doing a good job.
That's some good stuff they do.
Let's get off our soapbox for a moment and do a tiny bit of dissection. Do we want to start with I think let's start with the Farmers, and we can give it a couple of minutes, basically, because I just want Bruce to attack Zalatoris' putting stroke.
Oh, no, I'm not going to do it. No, come on. I mean, I'm not going to do a hatchet job.
Do you think maybe, just playing devil's advocate here, do you think maybe some of the Zalatoris putting rhetoric is massively amplified because of that one jib he had last year
at the Open?
Or do you
100%.
And actually,
I mean, you're saying that as if there's, I'm not really sure about this. It's like, absolutely 100%. Because the social media is a cruel place.
He doesn't look like a stone cold killer, does he? But
he does from tee to green. It's just when he's on the green.
So let's talk a tiny bit of statistics. Zalatoris, round by round, strokes gained putting. He was 0.07, negative 0.07 in round 1. He was level strokes gained putting round 2. Round 3, he was minus 0.3 strokes gained putting, and in round 4, he was minus 0.8. That's not miles off. Like, considering like his strokes gained around everywhere else is so good. He's not like minus 10 strokes gained putting and literally can't get the ball in the hole.
Well, no, that just shows you how unbelievable his long game was that week and his approach play, because and maybe you can correct me as the resident stato here, Mills, but I'm pretty sure, winners, when you actually go ahead and you like not just have a good sort of top 10 finish, but to go and win a PGA Tour event or a DP World Tour event, you're pretty much always in the positive and the black with your strokes gained putting.
And
so for him to be
2 or 3.
Yeah, 2 or 3 exactly. Maybe on average over the course of the 4 rounds, which is stacks up. Whereas for him to be, I don't know what that adds up to. I didn't do the quick maths there, but for him to be in the red there, strokes game putting. I mean, if I was him, I'd just be like, yeah, my long game approach play coming away from that is pretty remarkable.
Luke Bliss, for example, was 1.3, positive 1.3 strokes game putting. That's good. That's where it needs to be. Really.
And that's what was it 2.5 shots better than Zalatoris? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
he was 57th ranked, wasn't he, on the tournament with a putter? So we can the statistics and all that sort of jazz, but
absolute laser from List on the playoff holder. I think they were panicking about because they finished on Saturday because of the NFL. They were worrying about light a little bit when it went down the playoff. They were like, "Oh, this is going to be tight," and then List just absolutely lasered that wedge in on 18.
Yeah, spun it back,
kicking birdie, and that was that.
Yeah. Just a little footnote to this. Very nice to see your lookalike making a bit of a resurgence in the game. I think,
although he's not going any quicker.
He's still Jason all day, as they used to call him.
Jason all day. He was he still gives it the eye flutters and the imagination and all that stuff, and it's not quick, but it is good to see him back. For sure.
How far do you think you could? I mean, do you think you could ever go back to the days of seeing, maybe where he was at in the Giddy Heights when he was?
Don't say Giddy Heights. He's got vertigo.
Don't say that because literally when he was playing his best, he had a vertigo.
Well, that was it, wasn't it? Chambers Bay. So face around.
Really poor choice of words there, Sam.
That might be it. Vertigo. When you get to wheel number 1, he just had vertigo, and that was it.
Yeah, he just literally got a nosebleed, like he couldn't go any higher. Do you think we'll see that? Or do you think it's just too much of an ascent from here?
It just depends on the body. I mean, I've not followed it all that closely. I know he's been working with Chris Como on his swing just to take some of the pressure off his back, and I seems like that's working, but you never really get the full picture, do you? Unless you're there as part of the team or within that inner circle. Certainly, I think if you've got the mental fortitude to get all that way to world number 1 and win a major and play at such a high level for quite a decent period of time, then there's no reason why you'd lose those mental skills, and he should be able to get back to where he was. It's just whether his body can hold up to it. But what I will say, for those of you procrastinating in the office, go and check out Jason Day's Golf Barn on YouTube, because
that's so good, isn't it?
Or just general golf facility, because that is the most aspirational golf setup you've ever seen in your life.
It's not even his house. Like, you go there, there's this like mega complex. Like, it's like we're watching Cribs. No, it's not Cribs. It's just his golf facility. It's absolutely
golf barn,
worldy.
Gym, indoor putting thing, golf net that he hits into. Then he's got like 160 yards outdoors where he's got different greens that are shaped accordingly, and he's got open sand with a revetted face in one, like absolutely ridiculous.
And I think from memory, he's got a little yacht thing at the end of it, hasn't he? Because there's a big lake at the end of it.
This is where we just take if I need to just cool down, I just take the thing off the jetty and just go and have a few beers on the lake. It's like, I don't know why you ever need to calm down in that sort of facility, Jason, but sure.
You'd need to calm down. You're far too excited if you got there.
Yeah.
Okay, should we address the elephant in the room?
Well, is that are you talking about?
I'm talking about Rory.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Coming down the stretch, pretty much from the turn, probably from 11 onwards, the 11th hole onwards, he's in the lead. He's got down to 12 under. Outrageous birdie on 11, and then I got to check that's right now because I think it's 11, but I'm pretty sure it's an outrageous birdie on 11, and then he just does not accelerate. It was hard to watch. Did you watch it, Bruce?
I did. Yeah, it seemed like he was playing okay. Really, it is a really hard course, so you're not going to see the birdie fest that you maybe see in other events. It's not like someone's going to go out and win it and just take the thing by the scruff of the neck, or all those other expressions we hear, and reel off 2-3 birdies. It looked like he was playing pretty solidly, even through 15. Hit a good iron shot in there. That par 3 was not playing easy. Hit a sensible shot, just sort of 20 feet right, and then he's pulled his drive a little bit off 16, but again hit a really sensible shot in. Burnt the edge for birdie. So it looked like he was playing pretty conservatively. I think the weight on 17 killed him.
Yeah,
the weight
it was
on the
slow.
17
It was slow for sure. 17, 18
and on
was slow.
18.
But what I would say is from 10 onwards, the 10 the par 5, he misses the fairway with a 3-wood. Then, as you say, down 16, he hits an okay drive, but it's left in the rough. Manages to get a lovely shot onto the green. Then he's 2-putt par. Then he's on 17. Massive pull with a driver. 18's kind of a block with a 3-wood. Like, they're definitely not where he was going. So basically, he's not hit a good wood for about 9 holes. And then you've got 267 in over water
to a hard pan green that you can't even hold anyway. Yeah.
I've been reading Hank Haney's book recently, The Big Miss, Tiger Woods sort of thing. And he's talking about Steve Williams and Tiger's sort of strategic stuff. You just can't imagine that he would be allowed at 267 to pull a 3-wood. He just would never do it. Like, it was utterly the wrong shot choice at that time. Bearing in mind, he only needed a par for the playoff. And he was no way he could hold the green. It was impossible to hold the green from where he was.
Wasn't a mistake pulling 3-wood off the tee, though, really.
No, because he can run out. Like, the guy does hit it far enough that if he hits, he can hit driver 330, 340, no problem. And if you hit a drive, 320 on the long line, you're in the water, basically. So I can see why he hit 3-wood. Like, he's come out of it, and obviously, because of the shape of the hole, he's left himself longer in. If he'd hit that 3-wood decently, he probably would have left himself 230 in, perhaps.
Yeah,
similar to what Holden had in the playoff. So I don't mind the 3-wood
really.
choice. Yeah. I just think with you, Tom, it's like, is there a bit too much ego in that second shot choice? He's waiting on it as well. So I wonder, given that he just jogged my memory there, we were chatting about Abu Dhabi, but like, he was going well then in the final round at Yas Links, and then he's got up on 18, and didn't he smother hooker 3-wood like into the lake left with his approach shot into the 18th there, and he's kind of hit the absolute opposite. I don't know whether that was kind of weighing on him a little bit, and he's hit the absolute opposite sort of weak push into 18 at the Emirates, but yeah, it just seemed like there's maybe a little bit too much sort of, I'm going to be the hero here, riding on that final hole.
Was it the Irish Open where he hit that worldy 5-wood a few years back, and it's just like he's got to sit down like a sack of spuds from like 300 or something like that.
To win by 5 or something, yeah.
But you just feel like, I don't know. Is it the responsibility of Harry Diamond there to step up and say, nah, like, this is categorically, it's not the sensible play, because you can't hold the green even if you hit it. And if you go long on that green, you're then chipping down a firm green, downhill towards water, which is not impossible. He's Rory McIlroy. Of course he can do it. But it just seemed to be a complete brain fade, really. And he could have won it by laying up. It's just, there's almost like there's almost like a defeatism there to laying up.
In some ways, it's almost what makes Rory, I think, so, I don't know, it's almost likable, and the fact that people root for him so much is because you feel like that's a pretty Rory-esque move, what happened there. Do you know?
Yeah,
like,
I agree with that. I think it's why you want to watch him.
Like, I don't think if Morikawa was in that situation, that would have played out like that. I just can't see it. Now, okay, it's one golf hole over an enormous career span, but it feels like that whole nature with Rory is you spend half the time rooting for him and kind of getting on his shoulders when things are going well, and then you spend the other half the time watching Rory with his neck craned looking up at the sky. And in some respects, that's almost like what makes him like that. I don't know. And it's nice to see them go for it, isn't it? I mean,
he's always been streaky, hasn't he? I don't think he's ever been a sort of clinician in the way that, people would get annoyed for as much as people pretend now they're massive Tiger fans, but there are plenty of people out there, certainly like my parents' generation, probably beyond that as well, who would say watching Tiger was a bit boring because in that situation, you could just imagine him dumping an iron down there, knocking a wedge on to like 10 feet and then rolling the putt. And it's like, oh God, yeah, that was so predictable. He's won by one. Whereas with Rory, it's like, oh my God, he's going to give us some excitement here. Oh, he hasn't pulled it off. But, he's just never, I don't think he's ever had that. And this is not really a criticism. I think it's more just an observation of how he plays. I don't think he's ever been the clinician who plays the percentages. He just has absolute flashes of brilliance and then the occasional, well, what are you doing there?
Yeah, I mean, it is the reason that we do all love him so much. It is very gung-ho. And like you say, if he'd have laid up, chipped on, putt down, would it have been exciting? Absolutely not. But to watch him blow it like that, it was really, really hard. But let's not take away from a friend of the pod.
Yeah, unbelievable, really.
Arman Blandy.
Yeah. I mean, that was just an absurd final round from Bland. Really, really was. Absolutely incredible stuff. Like, he just absolutely grinded or ground? He grinded his ass off. 68 in the final round. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
I was shouting at the TV. 66. I was shouting at the TV.
Were you rooting for him?
Oh, yeah, because what a story. I mean, when he's kind of, okay, he's not hit the best tee shot down 18. I remember I was watching it with my dad and my brother, and we were like, don't pull out the wood. Surely he's not going to pull out the wood. And like, you couldn't see
he's got the wood.
because the sort of, he was out of the, like his lower body and his arms were out of the shot. But he was like looking behind the ball for a long time. We're like, oh no, like he's just spending too long over this. He's probably going to pull a wood. And then you see the iron, you're like, oh, thank God. He's got the iron. And then he's knocked a wedge on. It's like, okay, like he could finish tied third here. He's got 20 feet, but just cozy it down there. And then he rolls it and you're like, oh my God, this is absolutely incredible scene.
And gave it like the Payne Stewart, the full on double fist. He was brilliant. Like that birdie putt down 18 was insane. And it's almost like the complete opposite of the Rory thing, just going back to it. Like, you're like, he's got so much power, he can get on from anywhere. Like, I was the same as you going up, please lay up.
But he's just absolutely on the limit, isn't he? And like, you couldn't think of two more, Hovland maybe leans a bit more on approach than distance, but he's still a much bigger hitter than Blandy. You think, for him to go out and get into that playoff with the limitations around distance, around the kind of setups these tournaments are played over, is remarkable. And the fact that amazing. He really is in the twilight of his career. I know that.
Well, he said to you on the pod, didn't he, Sam? He's like, to be honest, I don't really play all that well in the Middle East. It's just not the kind of game. My game doesn't really you suit it all that well. Yeah, and obviously, he's also he's barely fresh off some surgery he had. Just a brilliant story, absolutely brilliant story.
Amazing. Would have been. I was so pulling for him though, because obviously it would just unlock exemptions galore, wouldn't it? That's the full calendar ticked off. Then that's your real. But he's picked up 789,254 euros and 40 cents actually, to be precise. Not that I'm not that I've got the website up or anything like that. But I mean, that's brilliant for what a way to sort of start the year. And also, I must admit, Victor Hovland, I've always thought he's a great bloke and just really enjoy watching him. And he reaffirmed that belief when, as soon as he came off the green and Tim Barter's there interviewing, he's like, yeah, I'm really sorry there, Tim.
He did.
And it's like, here's a guy who's like third in the world, I think he is now, and plays most of his golf out in America, but he's just not lost touch of some of the storylines that are kind of bubbling away on the DP World Tour and who Blandy is, and you just like, what a down to earth great bloke.
But I think one thing you got to say for Bland as well, that was genuinely like heartwarming, was in that playoff where he's absolutely nuked a drive and he's faced with like 240 and he's like, okay, got to go for it, have to go for it. Bailout's left though, so does it, bails out left, he's pin high, gets there and he's in a massive divot.
Another
And all he
divot
does is
again.
look at it and burst out laughing. And it's just if that was Tyrrell, you could see the clubs would have been up in the stand and like he'd have been raging, stamping his feet and all sorts. But Alan just looks at it, just burst out laughing. And it's like, and then to be fair, it was a great chip and he probably
Really
should
good
have rolled in that putt. But let's not take away from Hovland's finish, which was just absolutely absurd with the birdie down the stretch was just out of absolutely nowhere. 3 stab 15, missed a tiddler on 15, 3 stabs it, and then rolls in a monster on 16 for birdie. Best drive of the day on 17, rolls in a monster for eagle, and then birdie's 18, and then walks off and just going, it's not enough. Rory's already on 12 under. He's going to get the job done. So I'm probably just going to sit here and watch Rory come in.
Amazing. Amazing stuff.
So
it's so refreshing, isn't it? Refreshing honesty.
It's little segue. Blandy for Ryder Cup captaincy? ?
Yeah.
What's the criteria? Have you got to win X amount? If you haven't played,
I don't know.
He hasn't played in the Ryder Cup.
There's 2 angles to putting this on the agenda. There's been a few column inches going on this last few weeks. I think it's worthy of discussion in its own right. I also I feel like I've walked past a few times of throwing National Club Golfer under the bus. There's some absolutely shocking editorial content the last 12 months or so. But Alex Perry, who writes a lot of their kind of editorial content, loads in another brilliant headline here. Does anyone actually want the European Ryder Cup job? And then
seems clickbaity.
And then continues to spend 1,000 words essentially just dismantling all the sort of, great European players over time, whether it's Lee Westwood or Luke Donald or Harrington, whoever, and basically just writing us off for the next sort of 4 to 6 years in the tournament, which is obviously a principally British-facing publication. I don't think that's the case. Do you?
Well, there's a huge number of threads here we could pull on. I think I'll kick it off by saying that Podring Harrington, the ex-captain, obviously finished quite well in Dubai, didn't he? 7 under, so he's obviously only 5 off the pace there. And it just got me thinking that I really don't believe that you can be a truly successful captain or give yourself the best chance of success if you're still harbouring those sort of serious ambitions to play at the game at a high level. It was a huge storyline last year when Mickelson won the PGA at Kiowa. Harrington, I'm pretty sure, finished top 5 as well.
He did. He played great.
And I just wonder whether you can really separate yourself in the way that you need to and be as objective and just be able to sort of stand above the crowd and the players who are going to make up your team like you need to do in a position of authority and leadership as Ryder Cup captain. And that's why I think Lee Westwood's massively premature pick there, because the guy's still playing world-class golf and can compete at the highest level. I really feel that, some of the most successful captains that Europe have had have just been a little bit more removed from it. Maybe that's not right. I don't know. Monty was captain at Celtic Manor, wasn't he, in 2020, and Alathabel in 2012, and even Langer, if you go back to 2004, they were kind of still playing the tours, weren't they? I just wonder whether it's time for a bit of a change.
And that's partly why I couldn't stand the tone of the article, because it sort of says, we have essentially, we don't have the strength of players coming through that, the United States would have. Well, you know what? That's been the same for 50 years, arguably. He says, well, maybe that's the reason Westwood, who was nailed on for the job until he withdrew his candidacy in November, decided he didn't want it. He knew the job was too big. And unlike Donald, he's guaranteed to captain the team one day, should he decide when he's ready. And it's like, well,
that's actually
it's utter gubbins, because I agree. Westwood's teamed it up with, Westwood, is still performing at an extremely high level in the sport. And I don't, your skills as a captain in that, I would say, if anything, get better with age. They certainly don't get any worse. Experience is a good thing. So I know that's going to get announced soon. Luke Donald's the absolute running favourite for it, isn't he?
Yeah.
There were some murmurs about Henrik Stenson, which again, I mean, I just found massively premature. Like, he's had a bad couple of years, but
he also seems a bit too young.
Yeah, he does.
Like, he's not far out of it. You know what I mean? Like, not like far out of it. Perhaps he's not played that well in the last few years, and he's not going to be like, I don't mean far out of it in terms of world rankings, but he's like, you know, he's played in a couple of Ryder Cups ago. He's like only just out of it, and he did a couple of vice captaincies. Like, he just seems a bit young for it.
There was also some rumours going around that, and you know, this is unsubstantiated conjecture, which, you know, we excel in the jar.
We feed off, don't we?
Yeah, we love this stuff. That actually alignment with Saudi Golf League and some of the new tours would preclude him from it. Now, I've got someone who I would absolutely love to see be the Ryder Cup captain. Do you know who it is?
With a smirk on your face, so it's going to be someone daft.
I don't think it is, actually. I think
he's still really
I think we'd have a great locker room vibe. I think Ronan Rafferty would be a brilliant Ryder Cup captain.
They wouldn't be able to get out. He'd be still giving them the team speech when they should be teeing off.
The stories in that locker room would just amp you up for days. Like, I'd go on to that first tee just so charged.
I tell you what, it's interesting point.
There's a kernel of truth in this. There is a kernel of truth in it that actually someone like Rafferty has got such an amazing experience in the game, so much wisdom to draw off, and actually, you know, needing to constantly cycle down to the younger, more, you know, I don't want to say the term relevant, but, you know, I'm a relevant ex-European tour player, you know.
But I think it's strange that certainly in Europe, it seems that they don't give captains a chance to, you know, give it a couple of goes. It's like now it's almost as if we're in a rhythm of you do one go captaincy and then that's it, and you sort of dine out on that forever. And it's like Paul McGinley clearly dines out on a lot of the sort of stories of his successful Ryder Cup captaincy and getting people like Alex Ferguson in and all these great minds in sport and looking beyond just golf. And it is brilliant hearing him sort of reveal all of that. But at the same time, I'm like, get back in the arena. Like, you are really good. You've got a really good go at that. Go back in the arena and go and do it on foreign soil as well or something. Like, really just test your mettle there. I don't know why it has to just be a one-hit wonder. I'm pretty sure, I think it seems to me that the Americans are a bit more willing to do that. I feel like, I want to say Davis Love, obviously, you know, had that massive Sunday swing going against him at Medina in 2012, but then did he come back and captain the US team in 2016 at Hazeltine, I think?
Yeah, and they've got the President's Cup dynamic with the annual. Yeah. So that always gives it, there's more kind of team dynamic to manage and some stuff there.
I think, but whereas Europeans, it's like, okay, you got to go probably a decent way back to, is it the likes of Bernard Gallagher? Who was, you know, did the captaincy a few times. Maybe that's as far as you got to go back to think about Europeans who have had a couple of runs at the captaincy.
Do you know how many times Walter Hagen was US Ryder Cup captain?
Go on.
6 times.
Yeah.
That's commitment. I like that. But here's an interesting one for you. What do you think the average age of European captains has been this century?
Let me guess, you've looked this up.
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at, in fact, what I'm looking at is so since the 2000, 52. What is, no, it's a lot younger.
Younger than 52?
Yeah, which I was surprised.
That's insane, because a lot of the guys, you know, I mean,
they just seem old now.
Blandy's 49 this week, isn't he, or something? You know,
Sam Torrance, 49. Bernard Langer, 47.
Langer's good enough to play half the time.
Yeah.
Woosnam, 48. Faldo, 51. Montgomery, 47. Jose Maria Olazabal, 46. Paul McGinley, 47. Darren Clark, 48. Thomas Bjorn, 47. And Padraig Harrington, 50. So they're all late 40s. So taking that into account, perhaps we're just being a bit...
Yeah, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I wonder whether I do need to walk back my earlier remarks about Harrington being, because obviously if you go on the basis of age, which isn't just a fair metric of looking at it, but he's one of the older ones there, it just seems to me that he's a lot more invested in his own golf game than maybe some of the others were at that point in their careers. Yeah. I personally, I think get McGinley to do it again. It is on home soil. I would prefer to see him really go and like sort of test out his ability in America, because I just think, when you get someone who's been such a fantastic captain, get him to do it again.
Interesting. It'll be interesting to see when it comes out. It should have been announced by now, but it should have been announced in the week of the Abu Dhabi, I believe. But we're still waiting. Probably going to be Lou Donald, isn't it? If we're going to put our money somewhere, but I think it'll be interesting to see what sort of captain he'll be like if he does get it, because it doesn't seem, overly garrulous. He's not the Sam Williams of the group. Let's put it that way. So it'll be interesting to see what he can come up with. But excuse me, we've got a final bit of news, I think, before we tie off, and this is the shark. The shark's gone crazy.
Sam, this is right up your alley of wild conjecture, speculation, and just soundbite, clickbait. Just go for it.
Oh, it's emerging news, isn't it? But they've announced today that there's a 10 event thread on the Asian Tour, which the Saudi Golf League obviously purchased as part of establishing themselves and getting a stronger foothold in the game, because Asian Tour gives them the rights to award things like official World Golf Ranking points. So they seem to have announced a 10 event thread. One of those we played at in England in Centurion Club. Looking at the prize purses, they're not blockbuster. These doesn't look like amounts that are genuinely going to take on the kind of the big PGA Tour.
How much are we talking?
Purses. I think most of them are guaranteed prices. Yeah, $2, $3, $4 million.
But the overall
purse, about $4 million. Yeah, so obviously
that's nothing.
It's nothing
compared to the 10 million of the Rolex series and the big PGA Tour. That is.
So I think there's a little bit in here which is probably around the fact that it's Saudi Golf League and it's some news, and that's why it's going to grab some headlines. I don't think it is like these are 10 events and crikey, you start getting yourselves in Centurion, because you're going to see, you're going to see them all teaming up there. I'm not sure that's going to be the case. Clearly, it is going to be centered around, Asian countries as well. So you've got a lot going on in terms of that. Now, look, I didn't see the press release. Jeff Shackelford's usually got his finger on the pulse on this stuff, and he absolutely doesn't disappoint with a pretty funny dissection of events in the quadrilateral. But it kind of, I think the overall sentiment from it was, yep, there's 10 events launched. I don't think they're game changers in terms of the purses. Clearly, the locations will be a little bit kind of more far out. You've got places like Thailand on there, where it's going to, hopefully, different course, different setup, all that kind of good stuff. But I suspect it's a little bit more, get to make sure we've got an announcement out before the event we've got there this week. That would be my take on it. I think that would be reading between the lines. And of course, you talk about getting some news and generating some headlines for the event at Royal Greens. What do you make of the spokesman there, Sam, who's been sort of doing the sort of press obligations for the Saudi Golf League?
I can't wait for this.
Who? Greg Norman,
the Shark.
Yeah, the Shark, Greg Norman.
Well, I mean,
you told me you were giving a verbatim with accent.
Well, no, I'm not doing. I'm definitely not doing with accent. I mean, my voice is far too hoarse when we're recording this. But I mean, the guy's a showman, isn't he? Like, he seems like he's always had that. I mean, look, what misses from this is some great bit of context that Jeff put into his newsletter. But I'd love the bit that in here gets a bit of a description where basically he's just using this to grandstand about his own career and what he's doing and his involvement. And there's this, it's this dreadfully arrogant view of the fact that he's almost now controlling golf. Like, he's kind of sat above the R&A on all this. But this little bit, he's kind of waxing on anyway about the events. And anyway, it goes on to say, so after a whole bunch of stuff about growing his design business in Asia and the game in Asia, the moderator tried to reel Greg Norman in, but he just went back to more money and Greg talk. This is verbatim. Like I mentioned in my opening remarks, 60% of all golf course construction is happening in this region. I've seen it in Vietnam. I've seen it in Japan. I've seen it everywhere we go. And if you see the investment dollars, the foreign direct investment money moving in, golf is an economic indicator without question. So when you know there's an economic indicator showing what's happening in the Middle East, I built the first grass golf course in Jordan. Then I built a golf course in Oman. So you see it's the growth of what's going on through the Middle East, and you go, thank you. 1, for being involved with it. 2, thank you for my business for being involved with it. I mean, what a dreadfully arrogant statement that is.
Are you sure that is verbatim?
That is verbatim.
That's not some of the famous Shaq satire. That is.
And I could have said it in any way, and there is no way you could misconstrue the context of that. I mean, it's remarkable. But then, when you look at the Sharks' Instagram presence, it's kind of it's fairly commensurate with that.
Not unexpected. Yeah, this was the guy who many years ago just stripped stark bollock naked, didn't he, for Golf Digest, and started hitting bunker shots.
They kind of need this, don't they, to grab the headlines, don't they?
It's quite remarkable.
Yeah. You need the front man like that, because if you just take,
he's perfect for it.
Exactly. If you bring in the grey suit person X to do some of this stuff, I don't think those 10 events are going to be game changers, are they? So you stick the Shark up and get him absolutely amped, give him a few Red Bulls before he goes on stage, and this is what you get.
Yeah, I'm still not sure they're going to be game changers at events, but no, I mean it is great fodder, isn't it, for the podcast? And just I mean, yeah, we'll be interested to see where it goes. I'm sure we're going to hear plenty more discussion around that topic over the next week or so, with DJ looking to go for 3 in a row, is it, at Royal Greens in Saudi Arabia?
Well, they've given the players the exemption to they've given them the pass, haven't they? Again, the speculation on the street is that the Singapore International, I forget which one, that's going to be the one which is really going to force the PGA's hand when it comes to permission rights to play in it. Because obviously it's not
co-sanctioned.
Well, no, because it's not an event that's got precedent. So whereas before the Saudi event at Royal Greens was a European Tour event, whereas it's now part of Saudi Golf League. So there was precedent there to say the players could go and play for these sick appearance fees. Singapore's not really been a mainstay of, Jordan Spieth or Dustin Johnson's playing calendar. So will be interesting.
Yeah, very. Just finishing off, I think credit where credit's due. A lot of that information was lifted from Jeff Shackelford's newsletter, The Quadrilateral. If you are not a subscriber, please do go over, because he does give brilliant newsletters most weeks, I think every week, and it's always a good read.
Quality. Yeah. And some sit behind the paywall.
Yeah, very, very good. But make sure you go across and subscribe to that, because he does give some really interesting takes on a lot of the stuff here. And considering we were aiming for a short, sharp 30, I think we've gone for a short, sharp 60. But it's all been really interesting stuff to chat with you guys. And
that can be the title of the pod, Bruce, the Pithy 60.
Seriously, pithy.
Vigor,
I don't think we've
emotional
been
vigor and yeah, definitely.
But thank you very much for listening. Do stay tuned for next week, because we have the inaugural guest of Eclectic 18. And if you've been listening intently, I'm sure you would have seen that hints have been dropped on this podcast. But thank you very much for listening indeed. And until next time.
Goodbye.
Adios.
Watch this.